Make this back-to-school season your family's smoothest start yet. Wyzant is the nation's largest network of tutors with over 65,000 experts across more than 350 subjects. Get personalized one-on-one online tutoring built around your child's goals, schedule, and learning style right from home. No subscriptions, just the help you need when you need it. Go to Wyzant.com, that's WYZANT.com, and use code PODCAST15 for $15 off your first lesson.
Did you know we have completely ad-free early access to all of our episodes? Well, we do. Not only that, but we have dozens of bonus episodes waiting for you. Head on over to patreon.com/ghosttownpod, and you can check it out for 7 days absolutely free. That's patreon.com/ghosttownpod. Freefall. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
Hello, everyone. Today, we're talking about Freefall, A Reckoning for Boeing. We're doing another recap. I want to do more of these because they're fun. Mix it up a little bit. Trying to bring in more of the culture. That's a little bit of the moment. Let us know if you like it or not. We're going to be putting a lot of these on our Patreon, so please follow us there because I'd love to dive in deeper. Patreon.com/ghosttownpod. We'd love to see you there. We're going to put up so much fun stuff. I'm so excited for it, and I want you to join us. Anyway, I won't plug that anymore. Let's get down to business. So today, on our regular feed, we'll be talking about Freefall, A Reckoning for Boeing. Now, this came out 2 hours ago from where I am talking about it. This is breaking news, people. This is hot off the Netflix presses for you and you alone. Discourse. We love discourse. Right? Now, this is a tough one. I'll give you that. I wanted to do something that felt like very, again, that was happening right now, that people were talking about. So I got really excited about the Boeing documentary, but admittedly, bleh, it's dark. It's dark, people. It's very difficult to process, and I still am. So apologies if I stumble, if I get something wrong, if I'm not as, perceptively sensitive to it, because I'm still processing it too, to make sure that I get this out to you and that we can talk about it maybe. I'm really interested in this subject matter, and I really love Rory Kennedy. She's the documentarian who made this. My brother is an aviation professor in Australia. I have a long relationship with commercial aviation specifically because he is in it and is so passionate about it. So it feels close to me. Also conspiratorially. No, that can't be right. Oh, well, let's just move on. I also am interested in this and the interplay between, late stage capitalism, big business, and how we perceive of systemic corruption and how it damages us. Those things are all, again, fascinating, but also really heartbreaking. And you see it, you have a front row seat to it. It can be very upsetting. That all being said, a very impactful documentary speaks to much of the culture around business, profiteering, and in governmental issues and governmental process too. Sexy, right? Sexy topics. Well, let's get into it. So, again, what do I know about Boeing? I know from my family, I know from the news, I know from reading up on it when these things are happening that they discuss in the documentary, although they don't discuss all of it. We really focus on a couple big events throughout all of it. And that's good for me because it can get overwhelming, and the technical part of it can get overwhelming, and the emotional part of it can get overwhelming. So this really does a good job of focusing up, not to discount other things, other instances, but just to give certain events the substance that they are due. We start with John Burnett, who is a Boeing quality manager. He's giving a testimony on this specific day, and everyone, the attorneys, are shocked at the things that he's saying about Boeing. He's a Boeing whistleblower. He was scheduled to come in and do his whole testimony that day, but he is tired and they quit early. And the next day at 10 a.m., he has not arrived, and he will never arrive. Because the attorney is put through to John's room and the phone just rang. Then he asked somebody to do a check, and John Barnett is not in his room. He was not there. His truck was still in the parking lot, though, and the hotel manager saw something even more disturbing inside and calls 911. So that's kind of the cold open. Then we get into the credits, which are kind of old school prestige documentary. Do we need them for this? I don't think so. I mean, it's a feature-length documentary. We don't, it's not like a Bond movie. Like, we don't need the whatever. I don't know. Do people get excited about those credits? Not for something like this, I don't think. I was just like, oh, it just made it feel like it took me out of it. Like, it was a little bit superficial, honestly. I will say, though, the credits detail just a little, quick little tour into the dangerous things that Boeing has mismanaged with their flights over the years. And spoiler alert, there are many. There are many. They're just headline after headline of shit Boeing fucked up. So we need that as a little bit of shorthand, a little bit of history to get to the rest of it. But it's kind of in this sexy package, which feels wrong, We see Sam Mohawk. He's a Boeing quality investigator. Ron Irving, another quality investigator, both thought that their destiny was work at Boeing and thought that it was a wonderful company. We get the setup that it was wonderful, right? It was a setup that people were proud to work at Boeing. It was a badge of honor. It was their destiny. These engineers explained that back in the day, if there was ever a dispute, quality departments signed off on their work. They settled everything. They were like the king. They were the go-tos. They were the people that were in charge. But that atmosphere changed. All these people also explain that the decline of Boeing really started in 2005 with Jim McNerney, their new monster pig CEO. He was an executive at General Electric and a protege of Jack Welch, a kind of late-stage capitalism monster. The guy that would fire the lowest 10% of the employees every year just to make everyone else watch their fucking asses. That kind of fun guy. He seems like a really fun, conscientious, kind man. Really a good at sex man, a giving man. McNerney, of course, went to Yale and Harvard. He looks like clip art CEO, and he went all in with Boeing with this Welch way. He didn't fire 10% of the bottom employees, but he was really cutting shit real quick. He also wanted to do something a little bit flashy, design a new plane, a 787. It was supposed to cost, in his plan, $10 billion. But McNerney, well, he wanted to do it for $5, half of what it cost. Let's bargain bin this shit. I'm a new CEO. I'm getting in here. What should I do? Build a new plane. What should I do it for? Pennies. Thank you very much. So he starts to do that, right? They outsource major sections of the plane, Japan, Korea, Italy, Australia, whatever. All these countries are fucking making parts for this fucking new plane. And they ship those parts to Seattle, Washington. And guess what? There's no immediate control over the quality of the parts. Like a toy, the plane parts don't fit together. The plane was supposed to be snapped together again like a little toy, even in the best of circumstances, in 3 days. But there's literally like there's like a measuring stick showcasing a gap between one part that's supposed to be flush with another part of the plane. People are supposed to ride in this. Human beings are supposed to be thousands of feet in the air in this thing that the parts don't snap together because the parts are bad at parting, So then Boeing wants to make a second 787 product line. They're like, we'll figure this out. We'll make them fit. Let's do a whole product line. Why not? We got this problem, but you know what? Let's make some more problems. Boeing started in Seattle, and they had never built a plane anywhere else. Only Seattle. Parts in Seattle. Things in Seattle. Qualified people in Seattle. Seattle unions, right? All that sounds fucking amazing. But McNerney was like, no. Let's make a second Boeing line in South Carolina away from those pesky unions and away from that quality and that experience and that tried and tested reputation for good product and good business models. No. Let's do it for cheap. I mean, we're 15 minutes into this documentary, and of course, we all know where all of this is going, but it's so hard to watch. It's so hard. In 2010, the 787 was being built, sending experts from Seattle to make the plane in Charleston, South Carolina, where their whole new warehouse was. The big building place. Is that the technical term? Is that the technical term for it? I think so. One of these people was John Barnett. So his parents appear in this documentary at this point, and it's just incredibly sad. It's really, really tough. Because again, we all know where this is going, but we got to get there. We got to take the journey, So Boeing is sending these experts who have done this work in Seattle for decades to Charleston to help with whatever fucking bad news bears crew is happening there, because they emphasize that they are recruiting people right out of college, that are kind of interested but don't know how to build these giant planes. They just don't know. It's not their fault. But Boeing wants people quickly. They want people to assemble these little toy planes, big billion-dollar toy planes, right, that hold human life. And they want them to do it quickly. So they're recruiting. Planes are complicated. I'm saying this. I mean, do we know how they really work? Do we really know? Do I know? Absolutely not. Do you want me to be building a plane? No, I have a college degree. I have a shitty master's degree. You don't want me near a plane. You don't want me near plans to build a plane. You don't want me near the thought of building a plane, because I'm not qualified to do that. So then Bill Seitz tells the story. He's an engineer who's interwoven throughout the whole documentary about how he walked in at a guy with the sledgehammer going to town on an airplane to put in a thing. He was using a sledgehammer to build an airplane. Seitz, concerned, took a video, and he was instructed to get rid of it. Not to do anything with it, not to fix it. Get rid of the video, right? Just normal. It's normal that a guy with a sledgehammer is making a plane, right? Just pounding away on a plane. Sure. All of this, of course, is just to push to meet a schedule. Schedule is king no matter what. People would see holes in the plane, bad fasteners, shards of things. It was a mess. It was like a junk drawer of a factory at Boeing, but leadership was looking away. If you actually wanted to control quality, you got in trouble, sure, right? So 2011, Boeing and Airbus are in this rivalry to create this new plane. McNerney was very hot and horny to create this plane and, wanted to do it for something cheap. He's still trying very hard to do this and to maximize any profits, especially with shareholders. McNerney just said, let's do something simple then. Maybe not a plane. Let's spitball this. How about instead of a fancy new plane that we're spending a lot of money on, even though it's half the money we should be spending, let's do a fuel-efficient engine instead. We'll do a 737, tried and true. We know it. We love it. But we'll put a fuel-efficient engine on it to make it a 737 MAX, right? Like HBO Max, but 737 MAX. People got pumped for this. People started getting very horny for this idea. Airlines started buying the planes right off the shelves. Are there shelves? No, planes are too big for shelves. But they started buying them. And shareholders, they liked where this was going. In 2015, Jim McNerney retired a multimillionaire with Boeing stocks soaring. By all accounts, he had a successful reign, tenure as CEO. So people look at him and he's like, they did it. Look, he did this 737 MAX. Stocks went up, right? But it was the seeds that planted all of this Boeing fuckery, this culture that we now ascribe to Boeing because it fucked up so many people's lives. It ended lives and it fucked up other lives. Dennis Muhlenberg became CEO after that, but nothing changed. In fact, it got worse. Tiny things like shavings, pins, can eventually bring down whole planes. And this was kind of educational for me as well. They talk about these shavings that they found from doing bad work with some of the parts of the plane. Oh, I don't even want to describe it because I will sound like an idiot. But these shavings get into the plane because they're not cleaned up, because they're not because the tools and the machinery are not installed properly, there's shavings, there's extra excess, there's sprinkles, and that goes into the plane. And over, as this plane is used, these shavings fuck around with the electrical wiring in the plane. And while you don't see it, not the first flight, not the second flight, maybe not the 10th flight, maybe not the 20th flight, eventually it fucks up the plane to the point that the plane can actually come crashing down. Whew, terrifying, right? Terrifying. So if you said something about this, if you were a Boeing engineer or anyone who worked at Boeing, you'd get shuffled around, you'd get chided, you would get punished so you couldn't do more speaking out, and you couldn't make a living there, essentially. And if you did, you had to, be in a place that was disrespected. We'll say that. Then we see a montage, a couple videos of Boeing employees themselves saying that they wouldn't be caught dead on a Boeing plane. They're like, "Oh, would you ride a 787?" And one guy's like, "Fuck no." The other one's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I work here." Another one's like, "Hell no, and wish that on my worst enemy." It's truly insane that they've got this footage. It is so chilling. One engineer discovered that scrapped parts, like rotted parts that in this video footage, there's a plane part and it's got spray paint on it saying "bad, don't use, for trash," was put back on an airplane. This is what routinely happened. They would take pieces, air trash, and be like, "You know what? Let's buff out this spray paint that says air trash. Let's pop it right back on a plane. Let's use garbage to put on planes that people ride in. Plane garbage." Finally, a corporate investigation is launched, but nobody's fired. Nobody even takes time off. Nothing happens. This will become a bit of a theme. So Boeing is slowly being run into the ground with all of this cost optimization, corporate culture, and it's all wearing on John Barnett. But going to HR means you're a target that could be blacklisted from an entire industry, an industry that you love, that you worked for decades in. And those are high risks, and that's a very tough place to be. And yet Barnett goes to HR, whistleblows, writes a letter to the VP of Corporate Ethics in Washington, and even still, nothing. He says in his taped testimony on the last day of his life, "Is a plane going down the only thing that will stop this?" And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. And on March 10th, 2019, one does. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 goes down, killing everybody, almost 200 people on board. A control glitch overriding the system was discovered on the plane. It was a programming glitch and flagged. But also, that happened, it was flagged then, but then many other people brought this to management's attention years before the plane crashed. It's horrible. It was totally preventable. Some of the engineers we meet in the beginning get emotional about this, how the company that they revered, that they loved, they put so much time and energy in, could do this. And the engineers in this documentary are really they really speak to you in such a way that you feel horrible for them. I mean, you feel horrible for everyone in this documentary. These engineers they are doing this thing and they are being brave enough to come forward. It's a very high risk thing, as we will soon discuss. And it's a complete betrayal of everything that they worked for and are. Families silently protest outside Boeing with huge photos of the victims, of their family members that died in that crash. And this is also a really emotional part of this documentary. These big photos are so impactful. These families standing outside, being representatives in pain. It's like, does it have any conscience whatsoever? I mean, it's a corporation, but is anyone involved? Can I look in there? Can I find anyone who has a soul? Anybody just doing the right thing up there in upper management? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? No, the answer is no, because Boeing lawyers have a retort to the families who would like to be seen and compensated for the horrific loss that they've endured. Boeing lawyers say that they won't be compensated for the damages and the loss of their loved ones because it happened so fast. So actually, they shouldn't be compensated for pain and loss because their death was nearly instantaneous, which is the most deranged thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And how horrible to say that to a grieving family member. God, it was so hard to watch. Part of me was like, why did I choose this to recap? I'm interested in, but Jesus Christ. Damn. Dennis Muhlenberg, the CEO, is finally fired after these two crashes. Yes, there was another 737 MAX jet that crashed, which they don't even talk about in the documentary. Yeah. We'll just focus on this documentary. But again, there's all these other things that they don't really talk about. But you know what? Emotionally, for me, it's for the best. Muhlenberg is replaced by a man named Dave Calhoun. Calhoun is a chairman of the board for Boeing, and he seems like he's finally got on the right side of history. He's saying this shouldn't be happening. We have to look inwards. We have to fix what is very broken in this company. It sounds correct, right? So the Department of Justice is looking at Boeing, and they basically deduce that senior management didn't know what was going on, which is bullshit, of course. So they say this. Again, no one is held accountable yet or ever, but, at this point, they say, Boeing, here you go, pay a fine, and you're under probation for 3 years. If anything weird happens in these 3 years, we're going to get back and prosecute you, and we're going back into criminal trials, accountability, etc. Okay. Not the best outcome, sure, especially for the victims and their families and the engineers. But it's a plea deal made in heaven for Boeing. Again, I couldn't quite understand what was happening here legally and how that could take place, but that is in essence what happened. The families of the victims, of course, are not happy with this. They realize, though, that they have a mission. They have 3 years to find out something that Boeing has done to violate their probation so they can get them back in court and try them for their crimes. Actually hold them accountable, right? Unsurprisingly, I'm sure to you, the families find lots of things that are going wrong with Boeing. There's the most notable to me when watching this is the Post-it note that's on a flight control that is a reminder to turn something off so it doesn't fuck shit up. This is what we're dealing with here. This is what we're dealing with. So, of course, all of these things that they find in the media and through their research incites them to take a scrutinizing glance at what's going on in the factories. At this point, we circle back to Barnett. He's bullied, he's pay cut, and pretty much harassed and benched when he's talking in his testimony. So he stopped doing his job, which is quality control. He ended up just retiring to make it stop. But after he left, he knew that problems persisted. So he thought, what can I do about it? Can I do anything about it? And he thought, within the company, I can't. But because I'm retired, I'm going to start speaking out publicly. He gets into a network of whistleblowers and also connects with victims. In May 2022, there's 2 years until the probationary period is over and Boeing can do whatever they want to do without any accountability. And victims are turning up the heat. Boeing is assuring the public that they've changed their ways. Dave Calhoun makes these new changes, creates new tactical positions to make the company better, new safety positions. He also creates the Speak Up program, making it easier for employees to speak up for bad behavior. And just like that, Boeing 737 MAXs are able to fly again. Who will fly on them? Certainly not me. In fact, at this point, I'm checking all the flights I have booked for the future to see if they're Boeing. And guess what? They are all Boeing. What do? Do I cancel my flights? Do I consult the Delta app? Can I arrange for another plane? Is that possible? I feel like all planes are Boeing. And this is really freaking me the fuck out. But of course, Calhoun makes all of these masturbatory measures and it all goes back to being chaos. There's a point where 50,000 parts, 50,000 flight critical parts are not up to par and, they're going into the system as records. They're not up to par. And these records are reported and deleted. Literally deleted records about parts that are unsafe to use in planes that people ride in. People speak up about this and they are heavily retaliated against. Everyone is scared. The Speak Up program means, I don't know, not throwing out scrap metal garbage and using it in a plane, that's for sure. But it also doesn't mean speak up, does it? And then one engineer's tires are even slashed, which is kind of next level. Because now we're talking about, something very... This is the root of the conspiracy, right? That there is something very personal, a personal backlash. All of these other backlashes against the engineers can be attributed to all kinds of corporate bullshit, even though we know that it's not. Them not doing their jobs, them not being cooperative, whatever. All of this kind of veiled action to protect the company from what they were really trying to do, which is calling out bad things that were happening. But the slashing of the tires really got me because it's like, oh, this is a violent, retaliatory action that is illegal. And we're not behind the corporate veil anymore. You know what I mean? These poor engineers, the tremendous guilt that they have for their part in these tragedies must be crushing. And John Barnett, he files a case against Boeing, a private case against Boeing, which is basically him saying that he was exposed to a hostile work environment. He takes forever to get responses. Media is all over this. He's someone who, if he can't take action, within Boeing, here's another way he can take it without. He does other things too. He works with the victims. He speaks out in media, but this is something that he personally does, a personal action. And this case is also different from other whistleblowing personal cases against companies. Because companies, they'll take your laptop, right? They talk about this in the documentary. It's tough to have a case because they confiscate all your shit. It's hard to document that. But John Barnett, he was like, no. I'm documenting everything, baby. I want it all here for when I can use it. The deposition goes over this oxygen case with Barnett too, where squibs, cute word, are not dispensing enough oxygen. So 25% of the squibs are not giving oxygen to people that are wearing the oxygen masks. The squibs are the little top of the mask part. Imagine being in a plane and not getting enough oxygen. This is something, again, it's not like a little bolt or something. It's literally a way for humans to live. So fast forward and Boeing's 3-year probation is about to expire in 1 month. At this point, nothing has changed. And Nawaz, I think that's how you say her name, Connolly Ryan, the widow of Mick Ryan, goes to Washington to plead the victim's case, but nobody wants to listen. Again, in this way, she is very frustrated. It can feel very fucked. January 5th, 2024, 2 days until the Boeing's probation is about to expire, and Alaska 1282 takes off. My heart is in my ass when victims describe their children doing things in their seats. I know something's going to happen. I know we're getting set up because we got this story from Barnett from his testimony about the oxygen masks, and I'm like, fuck. Oh boy, what are we in for here? The passengers on this plane hear a big crash and the oxygen masks fall. One dude sees to his side a door completely open. A 1-year-old child is screaming. Masks are dispensed, but oxygen's not flowing. There is video footage of this, and this is truly horrifying. The oxygen is slowly depleting, and people are freaking out. We see a ton of texts from people in this plane, and they're holding families close. They're holding hands. They're praying. It's truly what they believe is the last moment of their lives. And then the plane, with a fucking hole in it, dives. They dip past the clouds. And by some miracle, they get control of the plane and they land. This is 2 days before Boeing's probation is about to expire. We see a headline, it's gaping hole in aircraft. It's fucked. So FAA grounds all the 737s that Boeing has. Boeing, of course, denies liability, of course, but it's hard to argue with a fucking hole in a fucking plane. Well, nobody died, thank God. It's such an indicator, again, right down to the wire, how bad this company is. The panel blowing off is traced back to a quality lapse in the factory. The door team, there is a door team, interesting, right? A whole door team has taken off the door plug to fix things suppliers didn't get right. They removed 4 retaining bolts to do that and didn't put them back. So that plane starts to be flown, right? Slowly, one flight after another. Vibrations shift the door plug until eventually the door blows off on flight 1282, Alaska Airlines, right? So again, these things, we don't see them right away. They happen gradually. At this point, I'm in my Delta app and I'm like, I'm never going on a flight again. I'm never flying again. This is too horrifying. I can't take it. My body can't take it. My spirit can't take it. Oh. So Niswaz, again, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right, Connolly Ryan talks about this flight, Alaska 1282, as kind of a miracle. Her words, not mine. Terrifying, but in a way, it's like this had to happen in order for the government to actually take notice. So now we're back to March 8th, 2024. Barnett is saying that his doctor said he could have a heart attack and die if he didn't get out of that environment, the Boeing environment. He's tired, he's taking his testimony all day, and he tells his lawyers that he wants to resume his testimony against Boeing a little bit later, right? He goes back to his hotel for the night, and in the morning of Saturday, March 9th, nobody hears anything from him. He's supposed to report back so they can finish up. So the lawyers go to his hotel, and the manager basically takes them back and says, "I'm sorry for your loss." That's how they found out that John Barnett had died. He had passed away. They learned that it actually happened in his car with a gunshot wound to his head. PD think it's suicide, of course. But again, the reasons are murky. He's in the middle of this big testimony, this big case, that he was talking to his parents, saying he looked forward to seeing them later, to being comfy in his bed. Oh, his poor parents. To participate in this documentary as a documentarian, it takes a lot to do that. And to see your child go through this for years on end must be even worse. A fellow engineer says, quote, "He was at the finish line. Being found in his truck like that, it just didn't seem to us that it was the John that we knew." Then, of course, there's a debate over whether Barnett took his own life or not. And there's certainly obvious motivation for a corrupt company to somehow get him, right? Get him is the technical term, to end his life. Lots and lots of discourse online. We see a montage of social media, and then, of course, Fox News talking about it in a very conspiratorial way, of course. It's very complicated. Merle Myers, Roy Ingrin, all of the engineers are disgusted by Boeing's treatment of Barnett, but they're all saying that they're inspired, too. In this darkness, they realized that they had to finish what he started, which is actually a beautiful sentiment in this documentary and something that really is the thesis, that you have to keep going, that you have to keep fighting for justice. Somebody has to do it. It shouldn't be you, but sometimes it has to be you. You know what I mean? Dozens and dozens of aviation whistleblowers have spoken up about this at this point because after all that's said and done, they drew a line. On May 3rd, 2024, results of John Barnett's autopsy report are given to lawyers and family members, and it's a tense moment. The coroners affirm that John Barnett's manner of death is suicide, that it was his gun, that it was the trajectory made sense. It's very sad. And also confirms something a little bit more complicated than the conspiracy theories maybe point to. Attorneys have Barnett's laptop, cell phone, and notebook, and in the notebook there is a suicide note. The note says basically, fuck Boeing, enough is enough, I love my family, Boeing can kiss my ass. You know, it's almost easier to believe that Boeing would pull the trigger or orchestrate something. It's easier to believe the conspiracy, and I think we believe in conspiracies because, and we've talked about this in a couple episodes in different ways around different conspiracies, we want answers. We want simple answers. We want answers that feel like they are oftentimes beyond our control. And a lot of things, of course, are beyond our control. But the fact is that this company psychologically got into this man's head, his spirit, this man that had been working there for 30 years, enough to take his own life is so much more insidious and disturbing. So finally, with the probation period over and a massive failure, Dave Calhoun goes to Washington to get grilled about the crashes in a hearing. Many families are there. The Barnetts are there. It is very hard to watch. Senators kind of grill him. Calhoun blames operating and manufacturing systems. Boeing blames pretty much everyone, Calhoun, Boeing, except their own asses. But nobody is buying it. The senators, again, I wish they had gone harder for sure, but they're getting at him. They're talking about his salary. Calhoun is looking like Sean Penn in one battle after another, just licking his lips and sweating his ass off. And we get, a little bit of comeuppance, a little bit of, hey, you did this, your company did this, what are you going to do about it? The documentary concludes not with any positivity. I mean, usually you get a little bit of levity at the end of these things. Not here, not now. People are dead, and the men who ran this company for so many years are some of the richest men in the world. The end plate, and there are many end plates, talk about how much Boeing CEOs have received in compensation and retirement. Spoiler, it's a fucking fuck ton of money. As of March 2026, Boeing Commercial Airplanes division hasn't turned a profit since 2018. It lost $40 billion. Not doing well over there. Boeing settled John Barnett's whistleblower lawsuit for an undisclosed amount. Okay, we get a little bit of levity, a little bit of something. There is a second lawsuit for wrongful death, which is pending. And in November 2025, the Department of Justice dropped the criminal case against Boeing for 737 MAX crashes, finding it $1.1 billion and a commitment to improving safety, quality, and compliance. You know what people do with vague commitments to improvement in this company? Nothing. The victims, again, have to keep fighting, and they do. Now, Boeing declined to be in this documentary for obvious reasons, but they did surprisingly leave a statement, and we get kind of two pieces of the statement. I'm sure it's long and full of words, and I'm sure the lawyers deliberately engineered it to be very boring so that it should not be shown or read or whatever in this documentary. But we get a little bit of it. It says allegations have been widely reported, some are unfounded claims, while others are issues Boeing has thoroughly addressed or continues to improve upon. That they have a new CEO, new values and behaviors that strengthen their culture. Now, we all know what that means. Absolutely nothing.